And we're live. Good evening and welcome to our virtual presentation of Spell's Trouble, Sisters of Salem, with authors PC and Kristin and our moderator, Allison Saft. We have signed book plates available for Spell's Trouble for those interested. To request one, just click on the green purchase button below the viewer screen. It'll take you to our website where you can complete your purchase. Just make sure that when you're checking out your cart, just write signed book plate in the order comments so that we can reserve a signed book plate for you. Also, we have a special giveaway for this event. For those of you who are attending, you are automatically entered into the raffle. We will announce and contact the winner later after the broadcast ends. Also, if you have a question for the audience Q&A, just use the Ask a Question feature at the very bottom of the screen. You can also vote for any questions you like, and they'll make their way to the top of the list. Okay, so let me introduce our guests, and then we can get started. So PC and Kristin are #1 New York Times and USA Today best-selling authors of the House of Night novels, including Marked, Betrayed, Chosen, and Untamed. After her tour in the USAF, PC taught high school for 15 years before retiring to write full-time. She's a member of the Oklahoma Writers Hall of Fame, and her novels, including the Goddess Summoning and Partholon series, have been awarded the Oklahoma Book Award, the also Quick Pick for Reluctant Readers, Romantic Times Reviewers' Choice Award, and more. And along with PC, Kristin has spent over 150 weeks on the New York Times bestseller list, peaking at #1. She's the author of the Key and Escape series, and she was born on an Air Force base in Japan, fun fact, and grew up in Oklahoma, where she explored everything from tattoo modeling to broadcast journalism. And joining them tonight is our moderator, Allison Saft, who is the author of eerie and critically acclaimed romantic fantasy, like Down Comes the Night, and A Far Wilder Magic. So with that said, I'm going to turn my camera off and hand things off to Allison. All right.
So much.
Yay, Allison!
Well, I'm so excited to be here with y'all tonight and talk about that Spell's Trouble I have right here with me. And, you know, I feel like before we get started, we talked a little bit about this in the green room, but some congratulations are in order because for those of you in the chat, Spell's Trouble has debuted at #8, correct, on the New York Times bestseller list. So please give them some love in the chat. It's so exciting, so well-deserved. I love this book, and yeah, I'm just super excited to talk about it.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I guess just to start us off, could you just tell us a little bit about the book broadly?
Yeah, Phyllis. If I do that, then she has to say.
Then I have to start. Okay. Yes. Well, we proposed this trilogy years ago. And we brainstormed this trilogy out at the Portland Oregon Zoo. Kristin and I were out there, and we were thinking about new projects, and this was one of like a group of 6, I think, Kristin, that we came up with. And we really loved the idea of having these twin witches, and also exploring more of like witchcraft-based magic versus like vampire stuff or goddess things and that kind of stuff. So that was so it happened at the zoo.
That's so funny. I love that. Was there something in particular about the zoo atmosphere that
I don't know why would you like why
because you said, like, I'm pointing at her because you wanted to go out to the zoo to brainstorm that day. I was going to come over, or you were going to come over here, and then you were like, no, let's go to the zoo. Like, okay.
Well, that's awesome. All right, everyone.
Well, it was clearly the best idea I've ever had. So
I was going to say, everyone take note. The zoo is where the magic happens. The other thing I want to ask you, well, I feel like a thing I need to get out of the way almost is my little fangirling because, you know, I was actually a teenager in the aughts and loved the House of Night series. I was obsessed with it, as were my friends. And so when I heard y'all were working on another novel together, obviously I was super excited. And it in many ways felt like coming home, but also like, you know, obviously an expansion of your previous work. So I guess what I wanted to ask y'all is, you know, you've been writing for multiple generations of teenagers now. Is there anything you feel has changed since you worked on House of Night together as opposed to working on Spell's Trouble now? Or do you find that there's constants in writing for this age group?
I feel like the only thing that's changed is not really how we're writing or the content as much as what the publisher is allowing to remain in the book. When Phyllis wrote the House of Night series and I worked as an editor on that series, a lot more stuff was cut that I think now would be allowed in. I'm not sure why the policing has changed in that way, but the way that we write has stayed constant. We've always tried to be very honest and forthright and depict teenagers and their relationships with other people as accurately as we can, and that includes, you know, drugs and sex and violence. And then, you know, it's always been up for a publisher how much of that was okay. And I feel like with Spell's Trouble, all of it was okay, whereas if we were writing in the early 2000s, some of the scenes would not have been allowed to be published the way in which they were published. But that's not because teenagers have changed. That's because publishing has changed.
I think publishing respects teenagers more now than they used to. And because I know that, I mean, I did the writing of House of Night. Kristin and I, we literally co-author Sisters of Salem, Spell's Trouble. She writes about half of it, I write about half of it. But with House of Night, I did all the writing, and Kristin was my frontline editor. And I wrote, and I always do this, though, I wrote not thinking, oh, it's YA, I have to narrow my vision.
Yeah.
I wrote what I wanted to write, and then it went through the editorial process and things got cut or changed, watered down, kind of. But that is not happening now, and I really do think it's because of a respect level for the audience. I'm grateful for that, too.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because I feel like YA was fairly young as a genre 10 years ago.
It was, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Because I started writing YA in 2005, and when I said my agent then, she had an idea for vampire finishing school, and I was teaching high school, so I immediately said, yeah, high school, YA, and she said, what's YA? That's how young the genre was then.
Yeah, man, how things have changed.
I think that it's a testament to publishing. They don't always get it right. They don't even often get it right. But the respect for the genre and for the audience. Sorry, these birds are yelling behind me. I hope you guys can hear that.
Ambiance. No, thank you. That's really interesting, and that's what I appreciate about Spell's Trouble and about House of Night is that, you know, I mean, like you say, you don't shy away from the more, you know, the gritty aspect of teen life. It is not, not sanitized.
Yeah,
but
and I think that happens that those of us who have taught teenagers and spent a lot of time with teenagers, we already had that. We already knew that they're worthy of respect, and that, you know, don't write down to them, you know, don't patronize them. And so it took publishing some time to catch up. But I think that.
Yeah, we're here. That's great. So something that was that you were talking about in that answer was, you know, Kristin, you were working as the editor on House of Night, but this is a true co-written book. So I'm assuming you split up Mercy and Hunter's point of view between you?
Yes. I wrote Hunter's point of view. Oh, sorry. Let you can finish.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, like, how did you two go about developing each character And also something I'm very curious about the co-writing process of what is it like reading your character from, the other person's point of view? Like, was there any, contention like, oh, Hunter wouldn't do that, or?
Well, that happens a lot because the only way, as you know, as an author,
but we don't get mad about it.
No, but the only way
it's not contentious,
right?
Oh, well, sure.
To really write a character is to be able to be in their head, and I write Hunter, and Phyllis writes Mercy, and I also wrote the bad guy in Spell's Trouble. And whenever I am writing a scene, like we break the manuscript up by different characters. Whoever's character is in the forefront of that chapter, that's who's writing it. That's whose point of view it's from. So any chapters that are from Hunter's point of view, sorry, my neighbor's cat is staring at me, and every time I wave my hands, it like moves its head.
Her neighbor's cat's a creeper. Her neighbor's cat's a creeper. Stares right at her window at her.
But whenever Mercy and Hunter are having conversation in Hunter's chapter, I'll just write whatever I think Mercy might say, with the understanding that Phyllis is going to go back through and change it. And she does the same thing with Hunter, just like with Xena.
Yeah.
Phyllis knows Xena a lot better than I do because she and Mercy are together a lot more often. So she's writing her.
She's also my for real cat.
She is.
Is she?
What would you do?
Yeah. So I will write whatever I think Xena's going to say, and then Phyllis will go through and change it. So sometimes I'll read it and I'm like, well, that's not what Hunter would say. But then I just change it, and she doesn't have I don't have to call her and ask or tell her. There's no argument or anything.
We know it's going to happen.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I imagine that makes it both easier and more difficult to write the manuscript. I mean, certainly less words between you, but I imagine a lot more communication is required.
Yes, well, before we start, we write a chapter by chapter outline. And so we know exactly what's going to happen before we even start writing. And we also know that if one of us if we're writing a chapter and it's going in a different direction, and we feel that it needs to go in that direction, then we'll stop and have a conversation and say, it's veering to the left, and this is how I see that it would change the following chapters. Is that okay with you? And then we go from there.
Yeah, I like writing with Kristin a lot. I like the co-author thing because, as you know very well, writing is so solitary, and it's awesome to have someone else who's in the trenches with you, but we're really good at we instantly usually see our characters. It was very easy for me to choose Mercy and very easy for Kristin to choose Hunter, and then I write Kirk's point of view. I write, in the next book, I write one of the bad guys in the next book, and it's just who we see. Split that up, and that I really like writing with Kristin because of that, and we have a great working relationship like that. I really hate the outline part. So.
She does hate the outlining part, but we tried to
Me
do.
too.
We worked on a different. I don't understand either one of you. We worked on a different.
Oh, Kristin, teach me your ways.
I love
Kristin
outlining.
is so good at it.
I outline obsessively. I have a format, and it's saved in Google Docs, and I have it dialed in. But we've tried to write. We've tried to write other stuff together before, and we didn't have an outline, and it gets very messy because she just starts writing random stuff, and I just start writing random stuff. It's just what are we doing? The story isn't going anywhere.
Right.
What happened to it?
Yeah. We have a formula that works very well.
Now we have it though. Now we have it down.
Thanks to me. So I did the zoo part, and I did the outlining part. I feel
You're carrying the team.
I am. I'm just carrying you. Clearly.
But we're working on Hex You right now, the third book in trilogy, and we have it down now. We have it plugged in.
That's awesome. Well, so that's interesting. So did you outline the whole trilogy before you started writing Spells?
No,
And then
Allison, we did not. That would have been
Well, yeah,
easier.
we did though, Kristin. We had the first book outlined really well, and then we had like a paragraph about each one of the other ones. We knew how it was supposed to end.
Yeah, but that is a paragraph does not an outline make. Phyllis.
Well, for me, a paragraph.
we knew what was going to happen in the end, but we didn't know what was going to we
didn't know how it was going to happen.
No, which is not great. I mean, the problem with so I wish that we would have known. I wish we would have been able to outline each book, and then we would be like, we understand. We won't write ourselves into any corners, plot corners and like weirdness, and we won't be kicking ourselves, wishing that like the past versions of us would have had a little bit more foresight. But the problem with writing all of that together is that before you have a contract, you're just using your own time. And it's a lot of energy. It's a lot of time. Like you don't just sit down and write a whole outline. Well, I don't just sit down and write a whole outline for a book in, a couple hours. And that I can't do it that quickly. It would have taken us
days and days.
Yeah. It would have taken us months to write an outline to do all 3 books at one time. And then also since we hadn't sold it yet, what if they didn't want it? What if it didn't sell? And then we wasted all of this time when we could have been writing a book that somebody actually wanted to buy.
Yeah. So this is a very painful reality that I'm experiencing right now. I know.
Yes, you spend so much time working on these proposals, and then the publisher's like, we don't like this. And you're like, well, I just spent 6 months of my life doing that, but thank you.
Yep.
Thank you for your time.
And new authors think that this doesn't happen to bestsellers. All the time. It happens all the time. Yeah.
This is comforting, actually. I mean, I'm sorry it happens, but it is comforting.
We're real sorry it happens too, okay?
Something y'all were both talking about that was, I actually had this question. It's not really, it's not really a question, it's more of a comment, but also a question. I was really interested by the decision to include the villain's point of view. He was actually I really enjoyed his point of view. He was a really interesting, sympathetic character. So I'm wondering, tell me about him. Like, why did you make the decision to have the villain's point of view? Like, what was
That totally changed. Kristin totally changed that. We weren't he was completely different. And then when Kristin started writing him, she came to me and said, I think I need to change the whole story about our villain, that he has to be understandable, and I want people to empathize with him. So she rewrote the whole thing. She changed his whole story.
Yeah, I love a villain. I love a dark story. I love horror. Like, that's totally my wheelhouse. But as I was writing him, I realized that, I feel like there's an art to writing villains, and I'm constantly, V. Schwab does that so well. The villains she writes are absolutely amazing. And I try to study, authors like her and read all of these books and watch movies and stuff about villains. And I realized as I was writing him that he was very one-dimensional. He was very in the dark corner, stroking his mustache, whispering to himself. And it was very B movie, and I felt like it was not good. It wasn't the kind of villain that I would want to read. And so I realized that at a point I got to a point where I was like, this guy is not reading very well. He's very flat and he's very boring, and I can't continue to write chapters from his point of view because it's just writing the same chapter over and over and over again. So I called Phyllis and I was like, I think that the key to making him an actual character, as opposed to just a trope or a cliche, is to try and see if I can get the reader to empathize with him and make him more of a person and less of like this storm cloud. So that's what happened with him.
Well, I think
as I was writing.
That makes sense. Yeah, and I think you very much succeeded. There was, being vague for spoilers, but yeah, you could very much feel his yearning, almost like this very
Good.
yeah.
Especially the scene out, and I'm not going to give away too much, you guys, because I know a lot of you haven't read it yet, but you can really feel it in that scene out at the football field, where Mercy figures out, or is it Mercy who figures out first?
Hunter
figures out that who the bad guy is, and that was really, I think everything came together right about then too. I really like that one.
Thank you.
Yeah, the whole football scene. That was a good scene.
Well done. Well done.
I feel awkward now.
And you're blushing.
I know.
Oh, it's a good book, y'all. Okay, something else I wanted to talk to you guys about. So obviously, this is a book about witchcraft. It's about sisterhood, about finding your place, but it's also very much a book about grief. And throughout the book, we see Mercy and Hunter dealing with their grief in very different ways. And one of my favorite elements of the book was the exploration of the way like grief can both bring people together and put a rift between them. I thought that was beautifully done. So I just wanted to ask y'all, what was it about loss or coping with loss that you really wanted to capture with this book, and what do you hope readers take away from it?
I think exactly what you just said, that there is no one way to grieve, because so many of us, when we have a loss or a tragedy happen, we think that we have to be a certain way. And I mean, I know someone who has had a major loss and hasn't even cried. And that doesn't mean that her feelings are any less. And then, I have a very good friend who lost his mother a year and a half ago, and he cries like 5 minutes. And it's just how both are dealing with their grief. And I think Kristin and I really wanted to free that for especially teenagers. That you're not wrong if you cry for 5 minutes for a while, or as long as you need to, and you're not wrong if you don't cry at all, and you kind of have to internalize. And I think that, right, Kristin, that's
yeah, I mean, selfishly, I love to explore like grief and like rage and these emotions that we normally categorize as negative, because I find them interesting. And I think what I find most interesting is how they're stigmatized. So I like exploring a character's reaction to traumatic events, and how society and the people around them, coupled with how they're internalizing the situation, who does that make them? Because you start, before traumatic events, you start as one person and you end as somebody else. And I've experienced a lot of trauma, and so I find it cathartic to go on these different discoveries with these characters. So I feel like it's more selfish. I love that that you asked what, like, the bigger picture. And Phyllis, I'm grateful that you thought about how it was going to impact other people. But to be honest, I just wanted to, I like exploring those things because I find them to be healing. So it's great that it's part of the people. I did not think about that.
That's a carryover from my classroom, because I always think about how that's going to impact students. And so that's why I thought about that.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm with you, Chris, and I also am drawn to themes of, trauma, recovery, healing. But I mean, I think that's what's so cool about, I mean, writing in general is just like the things that are, sometimes it feels like the act of writing a book is kind of like, I feel this way, what about you? And then it's always kind of this amazing thing when someone reaches back and it's like, yeah, me too, I feel that too. But yeah, no, YA is so, I think it's so valuable to have these depictions of uglier emotions, things that, you know, are taboo almost, so that young readers can find themselves. I mean, exactly like you were saying, Phyllis. So, oh, that's awesome. Okay, the other element I really loved about this book is like I love books that take place in really kind of small town sort of settings. And I felt that, you know, Goodville was so alive with, you know, all these people who, you know, have grown up together, they all know each other, they all know each other's, you know, histories. Was there a particular place that you drew inspiration from when you were developing it? Or, you know, just tell us about, you know, how you went about developing the setting.
Yeah, it's making me laugh because, yes, it definitely was. We based Goodyville very, very heavily on Homer, Illinois, where I went to school there my 8th grade year and my junior and senior year of high school. And it's actually Goody Lake. It's actually Homer Lake. And the Main Street drive, I even added like Kingpin Lanes. You know, I used some of the old names for, that were, I think actually the bowling alley's still there. Thriving downtown. No, and it has like one stoplight, and yeah, so it's Goodyville is Homer, Illinois.
Awesome.
But added to that is what I think that they need to do in Illinois is it's not too far south of Chicago, and there's a whole bunch of these little farm towns, and there are railroad lines that go all through the farm towns. So when we created Goodyville to bring in more diversity and because Homer, Illinois is basically dying, and so are a lot of those little farm towns. So we created a train line, a commuter train line back and forth from Chicago that picks up commuters in these little farm towns so they won't die. So it's Homer with like on steroids.
And of course, some magical trees.
Yes.
5 magical trees, yes.
I think we have time for maybe 1 or 2 more questions before I'll turn it over to the audience. Do y'all want to talk about, we could talk about the magic system. That was one thing I was interested in. Otherwise, we could talk about if you had a favorite scene or what's up next for y'all. Any of the above, I'm happy to.
What's your favorite scene, Phyllis? Can you remember? Oh.
See, and she's not asking me that because I'm old, okay? She's asking me that because we're writing the 3rd book right now, and they mush together. So
and we wrote this one in 2019.
Yeah.
And like we finished it in like the summer. So and then we wrote another. We finished the 2nd one, and so it's hard to remember like what happened in what book and what happened in.
Yeah, Paula, books are such weird crystallized moments of your past. Like, ooh, do I even know this book anymore?
I love the scenes with Xena. The scenes with Xena are so much fun to write. So you're not gonna pick
one scene?
One scene. Yes. Well, weirdly though, Kristin, one of my favorite scenes you wrote. I like the scene. Well, there we have it. I like the scene where Hunter does the magic that washes some of Melissa's grief away. Yeah. I like that scene.
Yeah. That's a good one.
You? Which one of my scenes do you like best?
I like, I actually think that I like, it's only going to make sense to people who've read it. Before the bad guy is the bad guy, and when you're with the guy, right? Like right before he becomes the bad guy. I really like that scene, and I sometimes I end up liking secondary characters more than main characters. For I don't know why, because I guess they're easier to write because you're writing them for short periods of time, and so it just seems like they're so they can feel so layered, but it's really just because you're only experiencing them for like 8 pages and then they're gone. But I really like I really like that scene. So
I like that
there you
scene
go.
too. I like both those secondary characters. When you guys get there, you'll know what we're talking about.
Yes.
Because there are two secondary characters right before the bad guy's the bad guy.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I like that scene.
I miss him. May he, well, I guess he's not well, but
I know.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yes. And he and Trish could have really been something.
they could
Right?
have.
Sad.
They should have. Yeah. Oh,
Breaking hearts, all characters. Alrighty. Well, it looks like we have quite a few questions from the audience here.
Okay.
Let's see. Okay. So the one that has the most upvotes is how many books will be in this new series, which it's a trilogy, correct?
Yes.
It is.
Okay, awesome. Okay. Here's one from Coral. Coral says, when writing this book, what was one thing that gave you inspiration? And also, how many times did you cry writing this book? Amazing job.
How many times did I? First, let me think. Cry. I cried. I think I cried 2 times in the first book. The second book, there's more crying than the second book.
I don't think I cried at all. I don't tend to cry when I
She doesn't, but she usually doesn't cry when she.
I don't usually cry when
almost
I write a book.
always. I make myself cry every book. I have to make myself cry somewhere.
I can like recognize. I'm like, oh, I'm verklempt, but I am never like. She will call me and she'll be like actually crying. I don't ever write anything
That's
and then
sweet. Me too.
actually cry.
Right.
So
I said before, it's like I'm like Joan Wilder writing the end of her book in Romancing the Stone, right? She hasn't bathed. She has like gross clothes on, and she's used all her Kleenexes. She's cried so much, and so she has to use a paper towel to wipe the tears off. That's me. That is me. And our inspiration, well, it came from the zoo when we were out at the zoo. And we were talking about that. I proposed like a decade or more than a decade ago, when I proposed some goddess summoning books. I also proposed to Berkeley a couple other romance series ideas, and one of them had a way where portals to other worlds opened. And that's how this started, because I said that to Kristin at the zoo. I was like, Kristin, is there any way we can use some of this idea from this old proposal that I did? Because I really liked that idea. And then we started talking about it, and that's how we came up with the trees and the underworlds and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, very cool. I guess what they say is true. You know, never throw out an idea.
I was just thinking that, Allison.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. Let's see. Okay, this question is, Mercy and Hunter share such a special and unique bond as twins. Were there any challenges that you faced in the writing process, especially? Oh, we kind of talked about this. That's a good question, Sarah. We're on the same wavelength here. Okay, was the title always Spells Trouble, or did you have alternative titles?
No, I don't even. I think whenever we first turned it in, it was called Eye Candy, and when you read it, you'll know why.
You'll know why. That's right. We want to call it Eye Candy. Isn't that gross?
That's amazing.
That was great.
Our editor was like, no,
you can't call it that. Which
Come on.
right? We thought it was great.
I thought it was super great.
Our editor Monique Patterson came up with all 3 titles.
Yeah, and they're super
Spells
awesome.
Trouble, Omen's Bite, and Hex You.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But so no,
we came up with Eye Candy.
We came up with Eye Candy, and I don't know. I mean, titles are weird, and any aspiring authors out there, just title it with something, because most likely, if you're doing the traditional publishing route and it gets bought by a publisher, they are going to change the title. They're going to meet with sales and then decide on a title that will best sell. So it wasn't Sisters of Salem either, which is the name of the trilogy. We didn't. Monique also came up with that. So it was called something else.
I don't remember what we called it. I don't remember what it was.
I don't think that we had a name for the trilogy, but Eye Candy was the first one. That was a good question. Nobody's ever asked. I don't think anyone's ever asked like what the previous title of something was. So yeah, Eye Candy.
And like Kristin and I just spent a couple weeks brainstorming like 5 new book series proposals for our next co-written thing. And we did titles for each one. And as we're doing it, we're like, I don't even know why we're putting a title down here.
Just think of something so that we're not just sending it in as Untitled Project number 5.
Yeah, that's it. And like I just sold an adult apocalypse duology, and I said that they should be called, the 2 books should be called Green as Blood and Red as Earth. No. It's Into the Mist and Out of the Dawn.
I like them both. So yeah, I like the.
I do. Yeah. So, and young authors tend to get stuck on that a lot. On, oh, I have to title this book before I can write it. No. You don't. You also don't have to have character names before you write it or as you write it. Kristin writes. What do you? You're like, when you're trying to come up with a character name, you don't have it yet. You always write something like Brunette Hair Girl 1 or something crazy.
Yeah, like I just put a placeholder and then until I figure it out.
Or you'll put like a name
in copy edits.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, let's see. So the most upvoted question we have is, how realistic is Spell's Trouble to Wiccan culture?
It is not. Well,
it's not a book about Wicca.
No, it's a book about witchcraft.
Yeah.
And
which are not
actually more.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. It's actually more authentic to my own witchcraft, which is kind of like bardic druidry mixed with some of Wicca, mixed with some just generalized pagan stuff. So, and a lot of the spells this was fun. A lot of the spells that we do, especially in the second book.
Well, that Mercy does, not that Hunter does.
Mercy, yeah. It's spell work that I actually do or have done. And I love writing it and then getting to put all the magic in there too. Because when I'm doing spell work myself, I'm just imagining it all happening. But when I write it, when I do the fiction, I get to like make things like the smoke turns into a tree, turns into a wolf. Yeah. Because I'm thinking in my head, that's what it's doing.
Yeah, I do love that about the magic system, that every witch chooses their own patron deity, so it seems like you can get a variety of different practices and spell work.
The witches are based on real witchcraft. I mean, there are green witches, there are cosmic witches, and that is true. I relied very heavily on Wicca for House of Night, and so we didn't want to have any kind of repetition of the magic system. So
makes sense. Awesome. Okay. So these 2 questions are kind of similar, so I'll just I'll combine them. The first question is, will there be new characters to look forward to in book 2? And a related question is, will there be new love interests for one of the twins? Don't want to say which one because it's a spoiler, says the commenter.
Yes and yes.
Well, it depends on which twin that you're talking about.
Oh.
Right.
I'm assuming maybe they're talking about Mercy.
If you're still here, put who you're talking about. Will you write who you're talking about in the chat so that we know who to talk about? I guess we can just answer for both.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mercy.
Mercy it's for Mercy. It's for Mercy. Thank you, Kate.
It's Mercy. Mercy has a romantic interest in book 2, and book 3, but there's not a romance. It's not a romance, but she has a romantic interest.
And
Yeah,
there will be
there's-
new characters in
And yes, there will be new characters.
both books. Yeah.
Awesome.
They're all-
I
I'm
think
excited.
the second one has the new characters, and then the third one, you have everyone you need is already there.
I think so too. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. Coral
Yeah,
says
this is
congratulations.
Thank you, Coral.
Let's see. Okay, so Kristin asks, what books have you read recently that you would recommend?
Well, I am reading your book right now, Allison. Down Comes the Night. Is that Down
Yes.
Comes the Night? That's the title? Yes. And enjoying that very much. I'm at the very beginning. I also just read The Moral Thieves. If you guys have not read The Moral Thieves, it is so it's so beautiful. That book is so beautiful, and it's very small. It's a quick read, and you're going to just messy snot cry like several times in the book. I also just read 3 of Rebecca Roanhorse's books. She is magnificent. She's a wonderful, wonderful author.
I'm always
Kristin, what have you just read?
Well, I'm always reading a historical romance novel because I love historical romance novels or Regency romance novels.
What are you
but
reading right
I
now?
Just finished. It's actually like a little. Well, the thing I'm listening to, because I listen to the historical romance novels when I go for my morning walk, and right now I'm listening to a. It's just like a Regency era mystery by MC Beaton. It's like those little, when they used to make those little thin little mysteries, and like 4 of them would come out by the same author in the same story every year. So I'm listening to those. But I just finished reading Postmortem by Patricia Cornwall. And
Oh, that's right. You were
yeah, that's the first book in her K. Scarpetta series. It was published like in 1989 or something. But good writing is good writing. And I so badly want to write a thriller, and so I read a lot of thrillers and I like thrillers a lot, but red herrings, like I feel like I cannot red herring to save my life. So I try to like read all of these thriller books to figure out like how are you doing this? How are you getting me to believe that somebody else has killed these people? And then at the end, I'm like, no, what? No. But how
I literally just had that experience with The Guest List. And unfortunately, I'm going to blank on what the author's name is. It was someone in the chat, please save me. Her first name is Lucy. It was wonderful. But yeah, it was Lucy Flake. Thank you, Sarah. It was fantastic. Yeah, there were like 6 characters. And I was just like breathlessly like, oh my God, it could be any of them.
The Agatha Christie of it all. Like that's so that was really good. If you haven't read Patricia Cornwall, then you should do that because she's great.
All right, I'm gonna check that one out. I'm into thrillers lately.
There are like a bajillion of the K. Scarpetta books too, which is always really nice. Yeah. I think she's still writing K. Scarpetta books right now. So.
That's so cool. It would be really awesome to stay with characters that long. Let us see. Someone asks, will more witches appear in the next 2 books with familiars like the lovely Xena?
According to Mercy and Hunter, which I don't know that. I guess we might not say this is in Spell's Trouble. I don't know, but we say it in Omen, the second book for sure. They believe that they are the only 2, that they're the only family of witches. So they're the only 2. And so no, we will not be introducing any other witches or familiars, because according to the universe that we're writing in right now, they don't think that there are any. So there would.
But there could always be.
There could always be, but there won't be.
Xena is too powerful for multiple like her to exist. So that's okay. So it looks like we have time for 2 more questions. Let me look here. So, how did you decide on what kind of tree y'all wanted to use as gates?
Well, first we chose the Underworld. and the mythology that we wanted to represent. And then we researched like the most iconic tree of that region or mythology.
Yeah.
Researching. Googling.
Researching.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Perfect. And all right, last question. Let me remove the pressure.
Yes. You have to pick the right one, Allison.
Oh, this is an interesting one. Someone says, what is the best feedback you've received from a teen reader?
Oh, that's hard because there's like a lot.
Yeah,
it's
been so many years. It's been so many years. I always, it always makes me really happy when kids message me and talk to me and tell me that something that I've written has helped them deal with bad things that are happening in their lives. So, especially like throughout House of Night, I know that House of Night really saved some kids during high school. And I, as a teacher and a mother, that means a lot to me. And that's what I really like. I really like knowing that. It makes me feel like I'm doing a good job with that.
And I really like it whenever I hear that the book is the first book that led them to YA or to reading as a hobby, because unfortunately I find in the public school system especially, we're forced to read all of these freaking terrible books by what Phyllis has coined as dweems, dead white European men.
Dead white European men.
Like, why are we reading? There's so many good books out there. So I'm always thrilled whenever someone says, oh my gosh, your book made me realize that books are great. Like, yes, because books are great. And if you don't like a book, just close it and move on to another book, because there's so many books out there. You don't have to, like, you wouldn't watch, 7 seasons of a TV show you hated. So like, just close the book and move on, because there are greener pastures. Books are so awesome. So I like hearing when people are like, ooh, books because of this book. I'm like, yeah, book club.
Funny little comment to go with that, Kristin. I didn't let myself ever close a book that I started until I was probably in my 30s.
See, okay, so I am on Goodreads and I rate everything that I read. And I was talking to my boyfriend not too long ago, and I was like, I don't know whether or not to rate this a 4 or a 5 star. And he was like, well, what is your criteria? Like, what would be a 1 star? And I'm like, no, I don't have any 1 stars. I literally only have 4 stars, or I have 5 stars. And he was like, well, that doesn't, like, you're splitting hairs. Like, why? He's like, you don't even have any 3 stars? Like, no, because if I read something and I'm like, this is a 3 star, I won't finish reading it because there's a 4 star or a 5 star out there. And I will read that one and I will love it. So I never have negative reviews or negative things to say, because I did not bother being mad about something I can completely control, which is just closing the book and reading something else. So
I love that, actually.
So I guess it's
life is too short.
I just felt too guilty. I don't know, made me feel really like I have to finish this book. That's one of the reasons that I read so fast.
She's like, I have to get through this. Oh my God.
I have to get this book done.
I think this is really good advice. If you don't like a book, there are better books out there. And save yourself some grief.
Romans,
right?
Yes. I mean, Spell's Trouble is out, and that is a good book. So go ahead and order one. Thank you so much, Phyllis, Kristin, and Allison. This was such a lovely talk. We loved having you on. And thank you to everyone who tuned in tonight. Again, we do have signed book plates available for Spell's Trouble. To get one, just click on the green purchase button directly below the viewer's screen. It will take you to our website where you can complete your purchase. Just make sure that when you're checking out your cart, you make notes saying that you want a signed book plate in the order comments. And if you've already ordered your book and would like one, just email our store at orders@vromansbookstore.com and we'll update your order for you. And like I said earlier, we do have a special giveaway for this event. So everyone who attended tonight's stream are automatically entered into our raffle. So we will contact you after this event is over. So congratulations beforehand, I guess, to whoever who wins. But yeah, I think that about covers it. For those of you who tuned in late, don't worry. A replay of this talk will be available. Just use the same link and you will be able to rewatch the talk. All right, so have a good night, everyone. Stay safe. And
Thank you so much.
bye.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Allison. Thank you.
Thank you. It was great chatting with y'all.